Hey guys, tonight we are stepping back in time, and far, far away from the hustle of modern life. We're going to experience the quiet, demanding, and profoundly isolated world of a female lighthouse keeper in 19th-century New England. This isn't a story of grand battles or royal intrigue. It's a story of solitude, immense responsibility, and the rhythmic pulse of the ocean. And a fair warning if you were actually dropped into this life. The sheer, bone-minus deep loneliness and the relentless cold might have you begging for a rescue ship by lunchtime. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It helps the channel find other quiet souls like you, and while you're at it, I'd love to see you say hello in the comments. Let me know what city you're in and what time it is for you right now. It's always fascinating to see where everyone is tuning in from. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. There is no alarm clock. There is only the subtle shift in the darkness. A change in the quality of the silence that tells you the deepest part of the night has passed. You open your eyes. For a moment, you're just a body suspended in cold, incubate. Then, consciousness returns, and with it, the calm. It's a physical presence in your small sleeping quarters, seeping from the thick, curved stone walls of the tower. It's in the rough linen of your sheets and the damp wool of your blanket. You lie still for a few more seconds, listening. The true sounds of your world are always there. First, the low, constant moan of the Atlantic, a beast that never sleeps. Its breath rising and falling against the rocky islet that is your entire domain. Second, a sound from above a rhythmic, gentle whump minus whump followed by a soft, metallic sigh. It's the sound of the great lens, rotating on its chariot of mercury hull rollers, faithfully turning all through the night. It is the tower's heartbeat, and it is your own. Throwing back the covers is an act of will. The air bites at your exposed skin, and the wide wooden floorboards are like slabs of ice against the soles of your feet. You don't bother with a candle just yet. You know the layout of this small, circular room by heart. The small iron stove, cold and silent. The single wooden chair. The small trunk that holds your few worldly possessions. Your hand finds the thick, woolen wrapper you left on the chair, and you pull it around your shoulders. The familiar scratch is a small comfort. You are not an anomaly, though the world on the mainland might think so. You are part of a small but resilient sisterhood of keepers. Many women like you took on this role, often inheriting it from a husband or father who fell ill or passed away. Women like Ida Lewis, the celebrated keeper of Lime Rock Light, or Abbie Burgess, who kept the lights burning at Matinicus Rock through a winter storm all by herself as a teenager. The government didn't officially care about your gender, only that the light never, ever went out. The light is a sacred trust. Your first task of the day begins with a climb. You open the heavy wooden door of your quarters, and the staircase spirals up into darkness before you. This is the tower's spine. The stone steps are narrow, and the outer edge has been worn into a smooth, shallow dip by decades of footsteps your father's, and now yours. You place a hand on the cold, rough stone of the central column for balance. As you begin to climb, your soft footsteps make almost no sound, swallowed by the immense stone and the sound of the sea. It's a strange acoustic environment. This tower, some keepers swear that the curved walls can play tricks with sound, that a whisper from the living quarters below can sometimes travel up the spiral and greet you at the top, like a ghost on the stairs. You've never experienced that, but you do notice how the tower magnifies the sound of your own breathing as you climb higher. Each step is deliberate. There are 102 of them. You've counted them 1,000 times. Halfway up, you begin to feel light a faint, low minus frequency vibration that travels through the stone into the soles of your feet. It's the turning mechanism, the clockwork, a constant companion to the sound. Historians and psychologists still debate the long minus term mental effects of living inside a giant, ticking, humming machine. Did the constant, unwavering rhythm soothed the mind into a meditative state, providing a sense of order in a chaotic world. Or did it slowly, imperceptibly, fray the nerves and deepen the oppressive solitude? For you, it's simply a fact of life, as natural as the tide. As you near the top, a faint warmth begins to push back against the chill. It's the residual heat from the lamp that has been burning for the last 12 hours. The air smells different to your mix of warm metal, raised oil, and the sharp, clean scent of polished brass. The final few steps take you through a small metal hatch, and you emerge into the lantern room. And here, you pause. This is your sanctuary, a cage of glass and iron suspended between the sea and the sky. All around you, the pre-dawn world is a canvas of deep indigo and charcoal gray. The sea is a vast, rumbling darkness, its surface invisible save for the faint hint of foam where it breaks against your little island of rock. Above, the stars are beginning to fade, and at the center of it all is the source of the heat, the light, the life of this tower, the magnificent lamp, sitting within its crystalline palace, the Fresnel lens. It's still burning, still turning, sending its silent, sweeping promise of safety out into the darkness. Dawn is coming. Your watch is almost over. The moment is precise, a delicate negotiation between celestial mechanics and government regulation. The official rule, printed in the stern, dark minus and minus white manuals issued by the Lighthouse board, is to extinguish the light at the exact moment of sunrise. But what, precisely, constitutes sunrise? This is a question that keepers up and down the coast could debate for hours. Is it the moment the first brilliant sliver of the sun's disk breaks the horizon, flooding the sea with orange fire? Or is it the calculated, astronomical moment printed on your charts? A time that might arrive on a morning so thick with fog you can't see your own hand in front of your face? Historians still find notes in old logbooks detailing keepers' anxieties over this. For you, it has become a matter of instinct. Today, the horizon is clear, a sharp, clean line. You wait for that first blinding flash. There it is, a sliver of pure, molten gold. The performance is over. Your movements are economical, honed by countless repetitions. First, you reach for a simple but vital lever connected to the clockwork mechanism below. With a firm, steady pull, you disengage the gears. The great, rhythmic turning of the lens slows, and with a final, gentle sigh, it comes to a complete stop. The silence that follows is profound. The tower's heartbeat is gone. For a few seconds, the only sound is the sea, which suddenly seems much louder, more insistent. The tower feels inert, a mere shell of stone and glass. Next, the flame itself. You cannot simply blow it out like a birthday candle. This is an argent lamp, a marvel of its time, with a circular wick that allows air to pass through the center, creating a flame of remarkable brightness and stability. To extinguish it, you use a long brass rod with a small cap on the end. The snuffer. You slide open a small access door in the lamp's base. The metal is still warm to the touch and carefully guide the snuffer over the glowing ring of the wick. You lower it gently, cutting off the oxygen. The brilliant white minus yellow flame vanishes instantly, leaving behind a wisp of grey, oily smoke in the shower, slightly acrid smell of a snuffed wick. The heat in the lantern room immediately begins to dissipate. Now comes the most critical part of this morning ritual, a step that seems counterintuitive but is absolutely essential. You must plunge this beautiful glass sanctuary into darkness. You move to the heavy canvas curtains that hang on a circular track inside the glass. Grabbing the thick rope pulls, you begin to draw them shut. It's a physical effort. The canvas is heavy and stiff with salt. As you pull, section by section, you block out the morning light, shrouding the magnificent Fresnel lens in shadow. Why would you do this? It's a fascinating bit of practical physics that many a new keeper had to learn the hard way. The Fresnel lens, with its hundreds of precisely cut and angled prisms, is one of the most powerful magnifying glasses ever created. If left uncovered, the morning sun would shine through it, and the lens would concentrate that sunlight into a single, intensely hot focal point right back onto the lamp. This phenomenon, sometimes called a sun-gold or sun-dog, could easily heat the residual oil in the lamp to its flashpoint. More than one lighthouse fire has been started not by the lamp itself, but by the sun's rays being weaponized by the very lens meant to project the lamp's light. It's a strange irony, the thing you protect the sea from, fire, could be ignited by the one thing you can't control, the sun. So, you entomb the lens in darkness as a form of protection. With the last curtain drawn, the lantern room is now a gloomy, dim space, lit only by the slivers of daylight that sneak through the gaps. The magic is gone. The lens, which just moments ago was a living jewel of light and motion, is now just a huge, inert object of glass and brass, waiting. Its surface is cold to the touch. You run a hand over one of the large bullseye prisms, failing the smooth, cold perfection of the glass. Its potential is asleep. You take one last look out a small gap in the curtain. The sun is fully up now, a brilliant white orb in a pale blue sky. The sea is no longer a black, menacing void, but a sparkling expanse of deep blue minus green, crisscrossed with patterns of wind and current. A few gulls are circling the tower, their cries sharp and clear in the morning air. Down below, the tide has exposed the slit, seaweed minus covered rocks that form the base of your island. Your world is visible now, in all its stark, lonely beauty. The first part of your duty is complete. The light is safely out. The ships at sea now navigate by the sun. But your work, the real, grimy, unglamorous work, is just beginning. The entire apparatus, the lamp, the clockwork, and every single one of these hundreds of glass prisms must be cleaned, polished, and made perfect for tonight's performance. You turn from the shrouded lens and head for the metal hatch. The thought of breakfast, of a hot cup of tea and a piece of hardtack, pulls you downward. The 100 steps await, this time leading you back to the small comforts of your solitary life at the base of the tower. Descending the spiral staircase feels different from the climb. Your body is moving with gravity, not against it, and the anticipation of food and a moment's rest makes the journey quicker. The air grows colder again as you leave the relative warmth of the lantern room behind, the stone walls leaching the heat from your body. You emerge back into your small living quarters, the room now filled with the flat, grey light of a cloudy morning. It's a space that is functional above all else. There are no frills, no unnecessary decorations. Everything you own has a purpose. You move to the small iron stove in the corner. This isn't just for heating. It's your kitchen. Before anything else, you need to get the fire going. You open the small cast-iron door and peer inside. The embers from last night are long dead. You reach into a wooden box beside the stove and pull out a handful of kindling splinters of dried driftwood you collect from the rocks whenever the tide is low. You arrange them carefully, then add a few larger pieces of wood from your precious, rationed supply, striking the match a modern luxury that you are deeply grateful for. You touch the flame to the kindling. It catches quickly, and a cheerful crackle fills the silence. Soon, a comforting warmth begins to push back against the room's persistent chill. While the stove heats up, you fill a small, soot-blackened kettle with water from a wooden bucket. The water itself is a constant concern. You have no well here. All your fresh water comes from two sources: rain, collected by a system of gutters that channel water from the tower's gallery into a large cistern at the base, and the monthly supply boat. A dry spell is a serious problem, forcing you to ration every single drop. You handle the water with care, pouring just enough for your tea and a small pot of oatmeal. Breakfast is a simple, solitary affair. Use it on the single wooden chair at your small table, the same table where you will later write in your logbook. In front of you is a steaming tin mug of strong black tea, sweetened with a tiny spoonful of precious sugar, and a bowl of thick, lumpy oatmeal. Sometimes, if you've been lucky with your fishing line, you might have a piece of salted cod to chew on, but this morning, it's just the oatmeal. You eat slowly, methodically. There is no one to talk to, no newspaper to read. Your only companions are the sound of the crackling fire and the ever-present voice of the sea crashing against the rocks outside your window. You gaze out that small, deep set window as you eat. It frames a view of endless water. From this lower level, you can't see the horizon, only the churning surface of the sea as it rises and falls. It's a view that would drive some people mad with its monotony, but for you, it's a living thing. You've learned to read its moods, to see the subtle shifts in color that signal a change in the weather, to recognize the different patterns of the waves. It is your neighbor, your jailer, and your reason for being here. This solitary meal is a moment of profound quiet. It's a time for reflection, for gathering your thoughts before the hard work of the day begins. You think about your family on the mainland, miles away. You try to imagine what they are doing right now. Are they sitting around a large family table, the room filled with chatter and laughter? The thought brings a pang of loneliness, a familiar ache that you've learned to live with. It's a strange paradox of your existence. You are responsible for the safety of hundreds, perhaps thousands, of unseen people on ships, yet you are utterly alone. A lesser-minus known aspect of a keeper's life was the diet. While official supply lists included staples like flour, salted meat, and beans, the reality was oft unmonotonous and nutritionally pure. Scurvy was a real, though often unrecorded, danger for keepers on the most isolated stations. This is why many, like you, took incredible risks to supplement their diet. You might brave slippery, seaweed-covered rocks at low tide to gather mussels and periwilkins, or spend hours fishing from a precarious perch. Some keepers even managed to find patches of soil in the crevices of their rocky islands to grow a few hardy vegetables. A constant battle against salt spray and wind. Your small garden is a source of immense pride, but this early in the season, it has yet to yield anything. Finishing your oatmeal, you scrape the bowl clean. Waste is a concept that has little meaning here. Every crumb is valuable. You wash your bowl and mug in a small basin, using the water sparingly. The leftover water, now slightly soapy and milky from the oatmeal, you'll save. Later, you'll use it to scrub the floors. Nothing is wasted. The stove is now radiating a steady, pleasant heat, and the room feels almost cozy, but this comfort is fleeting. The most physically demanding part of your day is about to begin. The great lamp and its magnificent lens are waiting for you upstairs. They are covered in a fine layer of soot from the night's burning, and every single surface must be polished to a state of absolute perfection. It's a job that requires patience, a steady hand, and a surprising amount of physical strength. You stand up, put your mug and bowl away, and take a deep breath. You pull on a pair of sturdy work gloves and a thick apron over your dress. The time for quiet reflection is over. You are no longer just a woman having breakfast. You are the keeper. You head for the door, ready to climb the 100 steps once more, this time armed with buckets, cloths, and the determination to make your light the brightest on the entire coast. The tower is waiting. The climb back up the spiral staircase is different now. You're not floating up in the pre-dawn quiet, but marching toward. In one hand, you carry a wooden bucket containing your cleaning supplies, soft linen cloths, a chomo's leather, and a small tin of polishing rouge. In the other, a canister of fines and all whiting a purified chalk powder for the heavy miner's duty work. The weight of the bucket makes you lean into the central column, your shoulder brushing against the cold, damp stone. The tower is still and silent, the great machine asleep. You emerge once more into the lantern room, which is still shrouded in the gloom of the drawn canvas curtains. You set your supplies down on the iron miner's plated floor with a dull thud. The first task is not the glorious lens, but the heart of the apparatus, the lamp itself. It has had a few hours to cool down, but some parts are still warm to the touch. You work with a practiced efficiency, disassembling the lamp into its core components. The glass chimney, now cloudy with a fine layer of black soot, is carefully removed and set aside. Then, the wick assembly, the burner, and the intricate system of tubes that supply the fuel. This is where the real grunt work begins. You take a soft cloth and meticulously wipe away the oily residue and soot from every single piece. It's a messy, smelly job. The unburned whale oil, or in later years, kerosene gets on everything. coating your hands and apron in a greasy film. The smell, a mix of burnt oil and warm metal, clings to your clothes and hair. It's a scent that you will carry with you always, the permanent perfume of a lighthouse keeper. Now for the brass, the lamp, its fuel lines, the vents, and much of the surrounding machinery are made of solid brass. In the damp, salty air of the ocean, brass tarnishes with astonishing speed, turning from a bright, reflective gold to a dull, greenish minus brown. The lighthouse board was obsessed with appearances, believing that a sparkling, well minus polished light was a reflection of a diligent, trustworthy keeper. Inspectors would arrive unannounced, and a single patch of tarnish could be grounds for a reprimand or even dismissal. So you polish. You dip a damp cloth into the tin of whiting or fine sand, creating a slightly abrasive paste. Then, with a firm, circular motion, you begin to scrub at the brass work. It's a physically demanding task that requires significant elbow grease. You lean your whole body into it, your muscles straining. You work your way through every piece of brass in the lantern room, the lamp housing, the fuel valves, the ventilator cap, even the ornate brass handrails on the gallery outside. The sound of your cloth scrubbing against the metal is a rhythmic, hypnotic shush minus shush minus shush, a counterpoint to the distant roar of the sea. As you work, you become intimately familiar with every nut, bolt, and seam of this machine. You know the feel of a screw that is slightly loose, the particular way a valve needs to be turned to prevent it from sticking. This daily, hands minus on maintenance is more than just cleaning. It's a constant diagnostic check. You are the doctor to this machine's body, and this daily examination ensures you will catch any small problem before it becomes a catastrophe. A clogged fuel line or a faulty ventilator could cause the flame to sputter, smoke, or even extinguish during a critical moment in a storm. Your vigilance is a matter of life and death for sailors you will never meet. Here's a peculiar little detail from the official 1881 instructions to light minus keepers. The manual specified that after polishing the brass, keepers were to rub it with a dry cloth until it is perfectly dry and brilliant. But it also warned them never to use any polish that could leave a greasy film, as this would attract more dust and salt. This created a conundrum for keepers, who were constantly experimenting with their own secret polishing formulas. Some swore by a mixture of vinegar and salt, others used lemon juice, and there are even accounts of keepers using, of all things, stale beer. Historians argue about whether these homespun remedies were actually effective or just a placebo, a way for keepers to feel a sense of control over their relentless battle against corrosion. You, perhaps, have your own secret recipe, a mixture passed down from your father, a little something extra that seems to make the brass shine just a bit brighter, for a little bit longer. After what feels like hours, the work is done. You take a clean, dry chomos and give everything one final buff. The results are deeply satisfying. The brass gleams with a warm, golden light, even in the dimness of the curtained room. It reflects your face back at you, a distorted, elongated version of yourself, a woman in a smudged apron, her hair tied back, her face set in concentration. The lamp looks brand new, a testament to your hard work. You carefully reassemble it, piece by piece, ensuring every component is seated perfectly. You stand back and survey your work. The heart of the lighthouse is ready. It is clean, polished, and prepared, but the soul of the lighthouse, the magnificent glass jewel that surrounds it, still awaits your attention. That task is a different beast entirely. It requires not brute force in scrubbing, but a delicate, almost reverent touch. You leave the buckets of gritty paste and doily rags behind, and go to fetch a different set of tools, preparing for the most delicate and important cleaning job in the world. Now you turn your attention to the main event, the colossal, silent star of the show, the Fresnel lens. If the lamp is the heart of the lighthouse, the lens is its soul. Standing before it, even after all this time, you still feel a sense of awe. It's not just a piece of glass, it's a work of art, a masterpiece of optical engineering, designed by the French physicist Augustin Jean Fresnel in the 1820s. This invention revolutionized maritime navigation. Before Fresnel, lighthouses used simple mirrors, which wasted an enormous amount of light. This lens, a beehive of crystal, captures, refracts, and focuses nearly all of the lamp's light into a few powerful, concentrated beams. Your lens is a first minus order, the largest and most powerful type, reserved for the most critical coastal lighthouses. It stands over 12 feet tall and 6 feet in diameter, an intricate assembly of glass prisms and bull's eyes held together by a delicate looking but incredibly strong brass framework. It feels like you are standing inside a giant, multifaceted diamond. Even in the dim, curtained light, it seems to possess its own internal luminescence, catching and amplifying any stray gleam. Cleaning this is an act of precision and care. You would never, ever use the same gritty powders or rough cloths that you used on the brass. A single scratch on one of these prisms could distort the beam of light, reducing its range and effectiveness. The official Lighthouse board manual is terrifyingly specific on this point, warning that any keeper found to have damaged a lens through negligence would face immediate dismissal and a hefty fine. So you begin the delicate ritual. Your cleaning kit for the lens is separate and almost sacred. It contains a small bucket of clean, fresh water. Sometimes keepers would use distilled water or even alcohol for a streak -3 shine, a set of pristine, soft linen cloths used for nothing else, and a fine chomos for the final polish. You also have a small, soft bristled brush, like an artist's paintbrush, for dusting the intricate brass framework that holds the prisms in place. First, you must gain access to all its surfaces. Inside and out, you open a small, precisely engineered door in the lens Orion. Step inside. It's a strange feeling, being enveloped by the very thing you maintain. The world outside the glass becomes a distorted, blurry mosaic. The air inside is still and has a faint, clean smell of cold glass. From here, you will clean the interior surfaces of the hundreds of prisms. You begin at the top and work your way down, a methodical process that ensures you don't drip water onto an area you've already polished. You dip a linen cloth into the clean water, wring it out until it is just damp, and then, with a gentle, circular motion, you wipe a single prism. You follow immediately with a dry cloth to prevent streaks, and finally, you give it a light buff with the chomos. The glass squeaks softly under the pressure, a sound of absolute cleanliness. One prism down, hundreds to go. This is slow, repetitive, almost meditative work. As you clean, your mind is free to wander. You think about the ships out there, beyond the horizon. You imagine a sailor on watch, straining his eyes in the darkness, searching for your light. You know that the clarity of this very piece of glass you are now polishing could be the difference between him seeing the light from 20 miles away or 18. In a storm, those 2 miles could be the difference between a safe passage and a shipwreck on the treacherous shoals that your light is meant to mar. This work is not mundane. It is a sacred duty. Here's a bizarre and slightly unnerving fact about maintaining these lenses. Keepers were issued with a special linen apron to wear while cleaning the lens, and some were even instructed to wear soft slippers or work in their stocking feet. Why? Static electricity. The act of rubbing glass could build up a static charge, which would then attract dust, lint, and particles out of the air, and doing all their hard work. Some historical accounts even mention keepers being instructed not to speak while cleaning, lest tiny droplets of saliva mar the perfect surface. Whether this was scientific fact or just an excess of caution is something historians still ponder, but it speaks to the almost religious reverence with which these lenses were treated. After cleaning the inside, you step out and begin the process all over again on the exterior surfaces. This requires you to move around the entire circumference of the lens. You clean the large central bullseye prisms, the dioptric panels that bend the light, and the rows of smaller, catadic prisms at the top and bottom that both reflect and refract the light. Each one has a specific angle, a specific purpose. You are not just a cleaner. You are the custodian of a complex optical instrument. You are polishing the eye of a giant. Your arms ache from the repetitive motion. Your fingers are puckered from the water, but you cannot rush. You find a rhythm, a flow, Clean, dry, polish. Move to the next one. Clean, dry, polish. The world shrinks down to the small piece of glass in front of you. The roar of the ocean fades into a background hum. The chill of the tower disappears. There's only you, the grass, and the profound silence of your focused work. Finally, after hours of meticulous labor, you are done. You run your hand, now bare, over a section of the brass vein. It is smooth and clean. You look at the prisms. They are flawless, invisible, so clean they seem to have disappeared, leaving only the shape of the light they are designed to command. They are ready. You take a moment to stand back and admire your handiwork. The great lens sits in the center of the room, a silent, crystal behemoth. It is a thing of immense power, currently dormant. Later, when you place the lit lamp back inside it, it will awaken, and all this patient, painstaking work will pay off in a beam of light so powerful it can slice through miles of darkness. You gather your cleaning supplies, your sacred cloths and chomos, and prepare to leave the lantern room. The most demanding physical tasks of the day are complete. Now, other duties await you in the world below the light. Leaving the pristine, silent world of the lantern room behind, you descend the staircase once again. The air grows heavier, damper, and the familiar scent of wood smoke and sea salt replaces the clean smell of polished glass. Your mind, which has been focused for hours on the microscopic world of dust and smudges, now expands to encompass the rest of your small, rocky domain. The tower is the heart of your world, but it is not the entirety of it. Survival here depends on more than just a clean lens. It depends on the mundane, domestic skills that keep your own life running. Your small living quarters double as a workshop. In a corner sits your sewing basket, a precious collection of needles, thread, and scraps of fabric. Life on this rock is hard on clothes. The constant friction against rough stone, the corrosive salt spray, and the snag of a misplaced nail all take their toll. A rip in your apron or a hole in your stocking is not a minor inconvenience. It's a problem that must be solved. You can't just go to a store and buy a new one. So you mend. You sit in your wooden chair by the window, the grey daylight illuminating your work. You pick up a thick woolen sock. It's heel-worn, almost transparent, with a darning egg a smooth, egg-shaped piece of wood tucked inside. You begin the patient work of weaving new thread into the old, rebuilding the fabric one stitch at a time. It's slow, meticulous work, much like cleaning the lens, but on a smaller, more personal scale. Your hands, which were just recently wielding polishing cloths and scrubbing brushes, are now nimble and precise with a needle and thread. As you sew, you might also turn your attention to other, more specialized tasks. If your station is near fishing grounds, you might have a wooden shuttle and gauge for weaving or mending fishing nets. A small tear in a net could mean the loss of a crucial food source, so this skill is as vital as any other. You work the shuttle back and forth, tying the complex, perfect knots that turn simple twine into a tool for catching supper. The sheer self-sufficiency required of a keeper is something often overlooked in the grand narratives of maritime history. The Lighthouse board provided the tower, the lamp, and the oil, but nearly everything else was up to you. You were not just a keeper. You were a seamstress, a carpenter, a cook, a doctor, and an engineer. A new floorboard. You had to hammer it back into place. A leaking window frame. You had to caulk it with oakum and tar. A cough or a fever. You had to rely on your small chest of herbal remedies and hope it wasn't serious. This leads to a fascinating and sometimes debated aspect of keeper life, the official regulations versus the practical reality. The Lighthouse Board's manuals were filled with strict rules, many of them forbidding unofficial activities. For instance, some regulations forbade keepers from extensive fishing or farming, fearing it would distract them from their primary duty to the light. Yet, how were keepers on isolated stations supposed to survive, let alone maintain a healthy diet? Without these activities, historians examining keepers' logs and personal letters find a world of quiet, necessary rebellion. They find records of bartering with local fishermen, trading a bit of oil for a fresh cat, or detailed notes about a surprisingly successful crop of potatoes grown in a barrel of mainland soil. It was a classic case of official policy clashing with the inescapable realities of life on a rock in the middle of the sea. Your mending finished. You fold the sock and place it back in your trunk. The day is moving on. The light outside has a brighter, sharper quality now, suggesting the sun has broken through the clouds. You might take this opportunity to do some housekeeping. You sweep the stone floors of your quarters, the rough broom whispering against the stone. You check the wicks for your household lamps this morning. Simpler lamps you use for light downstairs when the great light above is not lit. You trim their wicks, top up their fuel, and clean their simple glass chimneys. Everything in your life that requires a flame requires your constant attention. Perhaps you'll step outside for a moment, opening the heavy wooden door at the base of the tower. The sudden rush of wind and the boom of the surf is a shock after the relative quiet inside. The air is cold and tastes of salt. You stand on the narrow stone walkway that circles the base of the tower, your hand resting on the reassuringly solid wall. You scan the horizon, a habit so ingrained you do it without thinking. No ships in sight. You look up at your tower, a slender column of grey stone rising to meet the sky. It is both your protector and your prison. This is a time for small, necessary tasks. You might check the ropes on the small crane used to hoist supplies from the boat. You might inspect the cistern's cover to ensure it's secure. You might simply stand there for a few minutes, breathing in the wild, clean air, feeling the sun on your face. A brief respite before the next duty calls. The life of a keeper is a chain of interconnected tasks, one leading inevitably to the next. The mending is done. The floors are swept. Now, it's time to check the logbook, the official record of your solitary existence. Back inside, with the heavy door bolted against the wind, you move to the small table that serves as your desk. Here lies one of the most important objects in the tower, second only to the lamp itself, the Lighthouse logbook. It's a large, handsome volume, bound in thick leather and filled with pages of neatly ruled columns. This book is not a personal diary for your private thoughts and feelings. It is an official government document. Every single entry you make is a legal record of the station's operation. You open it to a fresh page. The paper is thickened of high quality, designed to withstand the damp sea air. At the top of the page are the date and the name of your light station. You take out your inkwell, a small, heavy glass board, and a pen with a steel nib. You dip the pen carefully, getting just the right amount of ink, and begin to write. Your handwriting is clear and precise, a testament to the importance of the task. The first entries are straightforward, almost clinical. You note the time you extinguished the light this morning, a little after sunrise. You record the state of the weather, wind from the northeast, moderate breeze, sky overcast, clearing by mid-minus morning, sea moderate. You document the amount of oil consumed during the night, perhaps 3-quarters of a gallon. This is a critical piece of data. Your oil consumption must be meticulously tracked to ensure you never run low. Then, you detail the work you have completed. Cleaned and polished the lens and apparatus, polished all brass work in the lantern room, trimmed wicks, swept tower stairs and quarters. Each task is noted, a testament to your diligence for the unseen eyes of the Lighthouse Board inspector, who will one day read this very page. Beyond the routine entries, the logbook is the place to record anything out of the ordinary. Did you spot a ship flying a distress signal? You would note its location, type, and the time you saw it. Did a piece of the machinery break or malfunction? You would describe the problem in detail. Did a flock of birds strike the lantern during the night? You would record that, too. The logbook is the tower's memory, its official history, written by you, one day at a time. But between the lines of these formal entries, a glimpse of the keeper's true life often emerges. While personal reflections were officially discouraged, many keepers found subtle ways to embed their experiences into the record. An entry about a fierce storm might include a phrase like, "Sea running mountains high, spray covering the lantern glass." A line that barely hints at the terror of being inside a tower that is shaking from the impact of the waves. An entry noting provisions running low as a star. understated cry for the overdue supply boat. This is a point of great interest for historians. They pore over these old logbooks, searching for the human element hidden within the bureaucratic data. Sometimes they find it in the margins, a small, penciled menacing drawing of a ship, or a note about a particularly beautiful sunset. The question of what was left out of the logbooks is as fascinating as what was put in. Did keepers omit minor failures of equipment to avoid censure? Did they downplay the severity of an illness? The academic world continues to debate how much we can truly understand about a keeper's daily emotional and psychological state from these sparse official records. They are a frustratingly incomplete window into a deeply isolated world. A curious, and rather charming, detail of logbook minus keeping was the unofficial passing of the torch. When a keeper retired or was transferred, they would sometimes leave a final, unofficial entry for their successor. It might be a piece of advice, like the west window leaks in a gale. Be sure to stuff it with rags, or a word of encouragement, like may your light always burn bright. These small messages were a way of creating a sense of community and shared knowledge across the years, a secret handshake between the lonely sentinels of the coast. You finish your entry for the day, blotting the ink carefully to prevent smudges. You read it over one last time, ensuring everything is accurate and legible. Then you close the heavy leather cover. The act feels final, a closing of the chapter on the morning's work. The documented proof of your labor is now part of the tower's official story. Your gaze drifts from the logbook to the calendar on the wall. You check the date. The supply boat. It should be arriving in a few days. The thought brings a familiar mix of anticipation and anxiety. It means fresh supplies, letters from home, a brief human interaction. But it also means scrutiny, an inspection, the pressure to have everything in perfect order. Your life is governed by cycles, the daily cycle of the sun, the monthly cycle of the moon and tides, and this, the cycle of the supply boat, your lifeline to the world beyond the waves. Before it arrives, you must be certain you have enough fuel for the lamp. It's time to visit the oil house. The journey to the oil house, Grueling, is a short but significant one. It's not located inside the lighthouse tower itself. That would be an unacceptable fire risk. Instead, it's a separate, small, stoutly built structure, often connected to the tower by a short, covered walkway or standing a few dozen yards away, hunkered down against the rock. This separation was a critical safety feature mandated by the Lighthouse Board. The bulk supply of flammable fuel, be it whale oil, lard oil, or later, kerosene, had to be kept isolated from the living quarters and the open flame of the lamp. You pull on a heavy, oil-stained coat as the wind outside is sharp, and unbolt the main door. The walkway to the oil house is slick with sea spray. You tread carefully, your boots finding sure footing on the familiar stone. The oil house itself is built like a bunker, thick stone walls, a heavy iron door, and a roof designed to withstand the fury of a hurricane. There are no windows. It is a place of cool, perpetual darkness. You turn the large iron key in the heavy lock. The door groans open on its hinges, revealing a dark, cavernous space. The smell that rolls out is potent and unmistakable. The heavy, greasy, slightly sweet scent of whale oil, the fuel that lit America's coasts for decades. It's a smell that gets into the very stone of the building, a permanent olfactory record of the lighthouse's function. Inside, the oil is stored in large metal casks or barrels, stacked neatly on wooden racks. Your station might have dozens of these barrels, a supply meant to last for months, sometimes even a full year, to account for winters when the supply boat cannot reach you. This is the lighthouse's lifeblood. Without it, the light is just a piece of useless architecture. Your task now is to decant the oil needed for the coming night and perhaps the next few days. You don't hold the entire heavy barrel up the tower. Instead, you transfer the oil into smaller, more manageable containers, typically 5-gallon, carrying cans made of copper or tin. You pick up one of these cans. It has a long, narrow spout for precise pouring and place it under the spigot of one of the large barrels. Turning the stiff, brass spigot, You release a slow, thick, viscous stream of oil. In the cold, the whale oil is sluggish, almost like honey. You watch as it gluggs into the carrying can, the sound echoing in the small, stone chamber. This task requires your full attention. Spilling this precious fuel would be a terrible waste, and a dangerous mess to clean up. You fill the can carefully, leaving just enough room at the top to prevent it from sloshing out as you carry it. The type of oil used in lighthouses evolved over the 19th century, and each came with its own challenges. Early on, sperm whale oil was the gold standard. It burned brightly and cleanly, with very little smoke, but it was incredibly expensive and became scarcer as whale populations were depleted. This led to a fascinating, and somewhat stomach-turning, period of experimentation by the Lighthouse board. They tried everything: fish oil, which smelled awful, rapeseed oil, which gummed up the lumps, and lard oil, rendered from pig fat. Lard oil was a particularly tricky substance. In cold weather, it would solidify, a process called congealing. Keepers in northern stations like yours had to find ways to keep the oil liquid. This often meant installing small stoves inside the oil vaults, or even wrapping the fuel lines inside the tower with heated cloths. Imagine the stress of trying to keep your lard oil from turning into a giant, useless block of fat during a blizzard, knowing the lives of sailors depended on it. The eventual switch to kerosene in the late 1870s and 1880s was a massive relief for keepers. Kerosene was cheaper, more stable in the cold, and burned just as brightly. Historians are still piecing together the exact timeline of this transition, as different lighthouses converted at different times, and some keepers were notoriously resistant to change, mistrusting the newfangled fuel. You seal the carrying can tightly and lift it. Its heavy oil is denser than water and the weight is awkward. Now comes the hard part, carrying it back to the tower and, eventually, all the way up the 100 steps to the lantern room. This is one of the most physically strenuous parts of your job. It's a pure test of strength and endurance. You haul the can out of the oil house, lock the heavy iron door behind you, and begin the trek back. You walk slowly, deliberately, your body braced against the weight. Once inside the tower, you set the can down at the base of the stairs to rest for a moment. You'll take it up later, before the evening ritual of lighting the lamp begins. The thought of that climb, with this heavy, sloshing weight in your hand, is already making your muscles ache. For now, the fuel is ready. The supply is secure. You have fulfilled another critical part of your daily duties. You have ensured that when darkness falls, you will have the sustenance for the flame, with the essential, life minus sustaining tasks of cleaning, record minus keeping, and fuel minus prepping done. A rare period of quiet descends upon the afternoon. This is your time, a few precious hours to feel like a person, not just a keeper, before the responsibilities of the night begin to gather once more. With the heavy can of oil sitting at the base of the stairs, a promise of the evening's labor, you find yourself in a rare pocket of discretionary time. The sun is likely at its highest point, though from inside the tower's base, it's hard to tell. This is the quiet lull of the afternoon, a space between the demanding chores of the morning and the ritualized duties of the evening. It is in these moments that the profound nature of your isolation truly settles in. You climb the staircase, but not all the way to the top. You stop at a landing about halfway up, where a small, thick minus glass window is set deep into the stone. This is your favorite vantage point. It's high enough to see over the churning water immediately surrounding your rock, offering a clear view of the horizon and, on a good day, the distant, hazy smudge of the mainland. You lean your arms on the cool stone of the windowsill and gaze out. The view is vast, a seemingly infinite expanse of grey minus green water meeting a pale, wash minus out sky. There are no boats today, no sails on the horizon. There is only the rhythmic march of the waves, the wheeling of the gulls, and the immense, silent presence of the sky. From here, you can see the coast of New England, a long, low, dark line that separates your world from the other one. It looks impossibly far away. You know that over there, life is happening. Markets are bustling, children are playing, Families are sitting down to their midday meal. There are towns, and farms, and forests. There are other people. The thought is both comforting and deeply melancholic. You are the guardian of that world, a sentinel posted at its edge, but you are not a part of it. This feeling of being suspended between two worlds was a defining characteristic of a keeper's existence. You were technically on land, but your life was governed by the sea. You were a government employee, part of a vast federal system, yet you lived in a state of near-minus total autonomy and isolation. It was a life of profound paradoxes. You might spend this time simply watching, observing the subtle changes in the sea and sky that your untrained eye would miss. You notice the way the wind draws dark lines across the water's surface, a sign that the breeze is picking up. You see how the tide is beginning to turn, exposing a new set of rocks that were submerged just an hour ago. This constant observation is not idle. It's a deeply ingrained survival skill. Your life, and the lives of others, depends on your ability to read the weather before it arrives. This is a time for your own thoughts, uninterrupted. The silence of the tower, which can sometimes feel oppressive, can also be a gift. There are no distractions, no small talk, no demands on your attention other than the ones you place on yourself. You might think about the letter you are slowly composing in your head, a reply to the one you hope will arrive on the next supply boat. You mentally rehearse the sentences, trying to capture the reality of your life in a way that your family can understand, without worrying them too much. How do you describe the beauty of a storm without conveying its terror? How do you explain the contentment of solitude without sounding desperately lonely? The psychological impact of this level of isolation is something modern science is still trying to understand. But for you, it is simply your reality. Some keepers went mad from the loneliness, a condition sometimes called the horrors. There are tragic stories of keepers becoming erratic, paranoid, or simply ceasing to function. Yet, many others, like you, found a way to thrive in it. They developed a powerful sense of inner resilience, a deep connection to the natural world, and a profound understanding of themselves. The question of what personality traits made someone suited for this life is a topic of endless fascination for historians and psychologists. Were the people who chose this life already predisposed to solitude? Or did the solitude shape them into the people they became? It's a classic chicken minus and minus egg problem, with the truth likely lying somewhere in between. A strange, and not often discussed, aspect of this isolation was the relationship keepers developed with the wildlife around them. Gulls, terns, and other seabirds were not just background decoration. They were your constant neighbors. You learned to recognize individual birds by their markings or habits. Some keepers would tame gulls, feeding them scraps of food until they would eat from their hands. These small connections to other living creatures became incredibly important, a substitute for the human contact you lacked. The birds were your companions, your audience, and sometimes your only friends. As the sun begins its slow descent in the west, the quality of the light changes. The pale, flat light of midday begins to soften, to warm. The shadows of the tower begin to lengthen across the rocks below. This is your cue. The quiet time is over. The responsibilities of the evening are approaching. You push yourself away from the windowser, the view of the distant mainland receding as you turn back to the dark, spiraling heart of the tower. It's time to prepare for the night. The first step is to bring up the oil, that heavy can of fuel that has been waiting patiently at the bottom of the stairs. The climb will be arduous, but it is necessary. The light must be ready. The sight of a sail on the horizon is an event of seismic importance in your quiet world. For weeks, your only connection to humanity has been the distant smudge of the mainland and the words in old letters. But today is different. As you perform your mid-minus morning checks, your habitual scan of the sea reveals something new, a tiny, dark speck. You watch it for a long moment, your heart giving a small, uncertain flutter. Is it a passing fishing vessel, or is it the one you've been waiting for? As it draws closer, its shape becomes clearer. It's the Lighthouse serviced Ender, the supply boat. A wave of complex emotions washes over you. There's the relief and excitement, Of course, the boat means fresh food, potatoes, onions, maybe even a crate of apples. It means mail, news from the outside world, a validation that you haven't been completely forgotten. But there's also a jolt of anxiety. The boat carries not just supplies, but also an inspector. His job is to scrutinize every aspect of your station, from the polish on the brass to the neatness of your logbook entries. A bad inspection can tarnish a keeper's record. You spring into a flurry of activity, though you keep the station in a constant state of readiness. The impending arrival of the inspector prompts a final, frantic round of checks. You give the brasswork in the lantern room a quick, last-minute buff with a soft cloth. You ensure the floors of your quarters are impeccably swept. You double-check the logbook on your desk, making sure the last entry is neat and orderly. It's a bit like preparing for a visit from a stern, unpredictable landlord. You stand on the stone pier or landing stage, a small, solid structure built for this very purpose. As the boat carefully navigates the treacherous waters around your rock, the crew are experts, knowing the hidden shoals and currents by heart. They throw a heavy rope, and you catch it, securing it to a thick iron cleat set in the stone. The boat bumps gently against the pier, and for the first time in a month, you are face to face with other human beings. The interaction is often brief and business-like, but it's still a shock to the system. The sound of their voices, their laughter, the casual way they move, it all feels foreign and almost overwhelmingly loud after the profound quiet of your solitary life. The crew begins the process of unloading the supplies. Crates of food, barrels of oil, sacks of coal or wood for your stove, and, most precious of all, canvas sacks of mail and newspapers. You direct them where to put everything, your voice feeling rusty and unfamiliar in your own ears. The heavy barrels of new oil are rolled to the oil house. The food supplies are brought to the base of the tower. You supervise it all, keeping a careful count, signing the manifest to confirm you received everything. A fascinating cold-knowledge tidbit about these supply boats is the sheer variety of items they carried, reflecting the strange needs of these isolated posts. Besides food and oil, the manifest might include things like panes of glass to replace ones shattered by storms or birds, special paint formulated to withstand salt spray, new lengths of rope, replacement parts for the clockwork mechanism, and even books. The Lighthouse board maintained a system of traveling libraries, wooden chests filled with books that would be rotated from one lighthouse to another. For a lonely keeper, the arrival of a new box of books was as exciting as fresh bread. While the crew works, the inspector, a man in a formal uniform, begins his talk. He moves with a quiet, officious air, a clipboard in his hand. He will inspect everything. He'll climb the 100 steps to the lantern room, running a white gloved finger over the brasswork to check for dust or tarnish. He'll examine the lens for any scratches or chips. He will check your logbook, your oil inventory, the cleanliness of your quarters. He may ask you sharp, pointed questions about procedures and regulations. It's a nerve-racking experience. You stand by, answering his questions respectfully, your heart pounding. The social dynamics of this visit were complex and are still debated by historians. Was the inspector a feared adversary, or could he also be a supportive mentor? The answer probably varied greatly. Some inspectors were known for their rigid, by minus book approach, while others were more understanding of the immense challenges keepers faced. A good report from the inspector meant job security and pride. A bad report could mean a black mark on your career. For female keepers, the scrutiny may have been even more intense, as they constantly had to prove they were as capable as their male counterparts in a world that was often skeptical of their abilities. After what feels like an eternity, the inspection is over. The supplies are all unloaded. The inspector gives you a curt, "Note a good sign." You hope and pray boards the tender. The crew casts off the lines, and the boat pulls away from your rod. The men wave, and you wave back. The small, solitary figure standing on the stone pier. You watch as the boat gets smaller and smaller, until it is once again just a speck on the horizon. And then, Nothing. The silence that descends in its wake is definite. The brief, chaotic intrusion of the outside world is over, and you are alone again. That your world has been replenished. The oil house is full, your pantry is stocked, and on your small table, there is a pile of letters waiting to be opened. With the supply boat gone and the silence of your island reclaimed, you turn your attention to the true treasure left behind the small, precious pile of mail on your table. This is your lifeline, your tangible connection to the world and the people you love. You handle the letters with a reverence that borders on the sacred, running your fingers over the envelopes, studying the familiar handwriting of a sister or cousin, imagining the hands that held these very pieces of paper just days or weeks ago. You don't rush. This is a ritual to be savored. You might make a fresh cup of tea, stoking the fire in the stove to make the room feel a little warmer, a little more cheerful. You sit in your chair, the letters in your lap, and decide which one to open first. Perhaps the one from your mother, its envelope slightly thicker than the others, promising pages of family news. Or maybe the one from your friend in the city, whose letters are always filled with descriptions of a life so different from your own. You slide your finger under the flap of the first envelope. The sound of tearing paper is naturally loud in the quiet room. You unfold the pages, and the words leap out at you. As you read, the stone walls of your tower seem to melt away. You are transported. You can hear your brother's new baby crying. Smell the apple pie your sister describes baking. Feel the hustle and bustle of the town market your cousin details. The mundane news of a world-away marriage, a birth, a local election. The price of corn is, to you, the most spellbinding story you can imagine. These letters were a double-edged sword. They were a profound comfort, a reminder that you will have done remembered. But they could also be a source of deep sadness and frustration. You would read about family gatherings you couldn't attend, holidays you missed. You would learn of illnesses or troubles, and the feeling of helplessness, of being trapped on your rock, unable to offer comfort or aid, could be overwhelming. A letter bearing bad news could cast a long, dark shadow over your solitary existence for weeks. You might also receive newspapers, often weeks out of date, but still a hungry, lie-devoured source of information. You read about politics in Washington, about new inventions, about events happening in other countries. It helps you feel connected to the flow of history, a reminder that the world is larger than your island. You piece together a picture of this outside world, a mosaic of news, print and handwritten accounts, which you compare to the unchanging reality of your waves and rocks. A fascinating aspect of Lighthouse mail is the sheer logistical effort it represented. Getting a letter to a place like Minutes Ledge Light, a tower built on a submerged rock that was only accessible a few hours a year, was a monumental challenge. Mail was a priority for the Lighthouse service, who understood its importance for morale. Mail was carried on the tenders, but sometimes local fishermen or even passing ships would be entrusted with letters for a keeper. The uncertainty of this system is hard for us to comprehend today. A letter could take weeks or months to arrive, or it could be lost to the sea entirely. The concept of instant communication would have seemed like the wildest form of science fiction. After you've read each letter once, you'll likely read them all again, more slowly this time, teasing out every nuance, every bit of subtext. You hold the pages, memorizing the phrases, letting the love and connection they represent sink into you. These pieces of paper must sustain you for another month, or longer if a winter storm delays the next boat. They are your shield against the crushing weight of loneliness. What did keep us right back? This is a question historians are fascinated by, though surviving letters from keepers are rarer than letters to them. From the examples that exist, we see a wide range of expression. Some letters are stoic and practical, focusing on the weather and the workings of the light. Others are filled with lyrical descriptions of the natural beauty surrounding them, the color of the sea at dawn, the patterns of the frost on the lantern glass. And some are heartbreakingly honest about the solitude. One keeper might write, "The loneliness is a physical weight," while another might write, "I have found a peace here I never knew on shore." There was no single, universal experience. You take out your own pen and ink, and a fresh sheet of paper. It's time to compose your replies. You describe your life in careful, measured terms. You talk about the light, the weather, the successful polishing of the lens. You mention the inspector's visit, perhaps downplaying your anxiety. You ask questions about everyone back home, creating a connection that will, you hope, be answered in a future letter. Writing these letters is an act of hope, an act of faith. You are casting your words out into the world, trusting that they will find their destination and that a reply will eventually find its way back to you. For now, the letters you've received are a warm presence in the room. You might prop them up on the mantelpiece or keep them on your table, rereading them over the coming days until you have them almost memorized. They are your guests, your companions. They have filled your small, stone room with the voices of your loved ones, pushing back the silence, at least for a little while. The beauty of your glass sanctuary, the lantern room, comes with a tragic and unavoidable consequence. In your world, defined by light and darkness, the tower is a beacon of safety for ships but a deadly lure for birds. The work of dealing with these feathered casualties is a somber, recurring task, one that is rarely mentioned in the heroic tales of Lighthouse keeping but is a stark reality of your daily life. It happens most often on foggy or stormy nights, especially during the spring and autumn migration seasons. Drawn by the powerful, disorienting beam of light, vast flocks of birds, sometimes numbering in the thousands, become mesmerized. They circle the light, confused, their natural navigational instincts scrambled by this artificial sun. In their confusion, they collide with the thick, unyielding glass of the land. The sound is a sickening, soft thud against the glass, sometimes one after another, like a grim, muffled drumbeat against the backdrop of the wind and rain. In the morning, after a bad night, the gallery, the narrow iron walkway that encircles the outside of the lantern room, can be a heartbreaking sight. It might be littered with the small, still bodies of songbirds, warbirds, and sparrows, their migratory journey cut tragically short. Sometimes, larger birds like ducks or geese make the fatal error, and the impact can be forceful enough to make you fear the glass might crack. Your first task is to simply clear the gallery. You put on your work gloves, take a bucket and a small broom, and step out into the cool, windy air. The work is sad and unpleasant. You gently sweep the small bodies into the bucket. They are so beautiful. Even in death, a flash of yellow on a warbler's wing, the intricate pattern of a thrush's feathers. It feels like a violation, a desecration of these tiny, perfect flying machines. What to do with them? The official instructions were usually silent on this matter, leaving it to the keeper's discretion. You cannot simply leave them there. Some keepers would unceremoniously toss them into the sea, a quick, clean burial. Others, more pragmatically, might see the larger birds, like ducks, as a welcome supplement to their meager diet. It sounds grim, but in a life where fresh meat is a rare luxury, it was a practical consideration. This practice, of keepers eating birds that had collided with the tower, is a little minus known and somewhat morbid footnote in Lighthouse history. There is a long running debate among ornithologists and historians about the true scale of this problem. Early environmentalists and bird lovers, like John Burgess, wrote passionately about the Holocaust of birds at lighthouses. They campaigned for changes, leading to the construction of special perches or nets on some towers to give the birds a safe place to rest. However, some historians argue that while the phenomenon was real and tragic, its overall impact on bird populations may have been exaggerated at the time. The truth is, we will likely never know the exact numbers. The records are sparse, and the keepers themselves were probably too busy to conduct a formal census of the dead. For you, it is not a matter of statistics. It is the sad, tangible reality in your bucket. After clearing the gallery, the more difficult work begins cleaning the glass. The impacts often leave behind streaks and smudges of oil and feathers, marring the perfect clarity you worked so hard to achieve. So, once again, you must get out your cleaning supplies, the soft cloths, the clean water, the chummers, and repeat a portion of your morning's work. You meticulously wipe away the evidence of the night's tragedy, restoring the glass to its state of pristine invisibility. Each smudge you wipe away is a ghost of a life, a small death that your life, your responsibility, inadvertently caused. This part of the job weighs on you. It's a stark reminder of the unintended consequences of your work. The light that saves human lives takes avian ones. It is a paradox you must live with, a recurring sorrow in your otherwise orderly world. You might find yourself pausing as you clean, looking out at the vast sky, and offering a small, silent apology to the flocks that are still flying, hoping they will pass your light safely in the nights to come. The strange, sad relationship with birds also had its moments of wonder. Some keepers described the incredible spectacle of migration, of waking to find the entire lantern room surrounded by a living curtain of birds, their wings beating against the glass, their forms silhouetted against the dawn. It was a terrifying, beautiful, and unforgettable sight. Some keepers even became amateur ornithologists, using their unique vantage point to observe and document the bird life of the coast. They would note the arrival and departure of different species in their logbooks, their observations providing valuable data for later scientists. Once the glass is clean and the gallery is clear, the grim task is over. You put your supplies away and try to put the morning's unpleasantness out of your mind. There are other duties that call for a different kind of attention, duties that connect you not to the sky, but to the rock beneath your feet. It's time to tend to your garden. After the somber task of clearing the morning's casualties, you need to connect with something that affirms life. For you, that is your garden. The very idea of a garden on this barren, windswept rock seems like an act of defiance, a small, stubborn protest against the overwhelming power of the sea. It is not a sprawling plot of land, but a collection of wooden barrels and salvaged crates, huddled together in the most sheltered spot you could find, usually on the leeward side of the tower's base. Each barrel is filled with the precious commodity soil. This isn't the native, rocky ground of your island. This is rich, dark earth that you had delivered by the supply boat, or perhaps painstakingly collected in sacks from the mainland on a rare trip ashore. It is a piece of the other world, transported to yours. Tending to this small patch of transplanted earth is a vital part of your routine, both for your pantry and for your spirit. You kneel beside one of the barrels. The wind tugs at your hair and your apron, a constant, invisible force you must always lean against. The air is thick with the taste of salt, the greatest enemy of your fragile plants. The salt spray coats everything, burning the leaves and poisoning the soil. Your gardening efforts are a constant battle against this corrosive environment. To protect your precious plants, you may have constructed small, makeshift cold frames from old window panes and scrap wood, creating tiny greenhouses to shield the seedlings from the worst of the wind and salt. You might have a system for collecting the precious rainwater that runs off the tower, diverting some of it from the main cistern to water your garden, as the cistern water is too vital to be used freely. Your hands, which have been scrubbers of brass and polishers of glass, now become gentle cultivators. You carefully pull a few stubborn weeds that have managed to sprout. You check the leaves of your potato plants for any signs of blight. You see that the lettuce, a hardy, salt-tolerant variety, is beginning to form heads. The sight of this small, green success fills you with a deep, quiet pride. The choice of what to grow was a matter of intense experimentation and shared knowledge among the Lighthouse community. Keepers would exchange seeds and advice through letters. What thrived at one station might fail miserably at another. Hardy root vegetables like potatoes, carrots, and turnips were common choices. Leafy greens like kale and chard, which could withstand the cool, damp climate, were also popular. Some ambitious keepers even tried to grow tomatoes, carefully nurturing them through the short, cool summers. The ability to add a fresh potato to a stew of salted meat, or a fresh leaf of lettuce to a meal, was a luxury that cannot be overstated. It was a taste of freshness and life in a diet dominated by preserved foods. This practice of lighthouse gardening is a fascinating footnote in horticultural history. It represents some of the most extreme forms of container and coastal gardening. There's an ongoing, if niche, academic interest in identifying the specific heirloom varieties of vegetables that were hardy enough to survive these conditions. Some historians speculate that certain unique, salt-tolerant strains of common vegetables may have been inadvertently developed and passed along through the tight-knit network of lighthouse keepers. It's a tantalizing idea that these isolated gardeners were also accidental botanists. You reach into a small crate where you are attempting to grow herbs. You crush a leaf of mint between your fingers, and the bright, sharp scent cuts through the salty air. It's a smell that reminds you of mainland gardens, of summer afternoons far from the roar of the ocean. You might also have rosemary or thyme, hardy herbs that can survive the tough conditions and add much needed flavor to your simple meals. Tending to this garden is more than just a chore. It's a form of therapy. It connects you to the seasons in a way that the eternal sea and stone cannot. You watch the slow, patient progress of a seed sprouting, a leaf unfurling, a bud forming. It is a rhythm of life that is different from the daily, mechanical rhythm of the light. It is organic, unpredictable, and deeply rewarding. It gives you something to nurture, to care for, to watch grow. In a life of immense responsibility for an inanimate object, caring for these small, living things is a vital emotional anchor. As you finish your work, you might harvest a few things for your evening meal. A couple of small, new potatoes, a handful of tough but flavorful greens. You carry your small harvest back towards the tower door, cradling it carefully. This food, grown with your own hands against all odds, will taste better than anything the supply boat can bring. The sun is beginning to dip lower in the sky now. The light is turning golden. Your brief respite in the garden is over. The air is growing cooler, and you notice a change in the atmosphere, a subtle dampness, a blurring at the edges of the horizon. You look out to sea, your keeper's instincts kicking in. The weather is about to turn. The fog is coming. You feel it before you see it. A subtle shift in the air. The crisp, serene sharpness of the afternoon is being replaced by a soft, damp weight. The sound of the sea seems to change, the roar of the surf becoming muffled and dull, as if a thick blanket is being slowly drawn over the world. You stand outside the tower door, your small harvest of greens still in your hand, and scan the horizon. There it is, a low, grey bank, motionless and silent, sitting on the edge of the sea. It's a fog bank, and it's immense, unlike a storm, which announces its arrival with rising winds and dramatic clouds. Fog creeps in with a stealthy, unnerving quiet. It is a silent, passive aggressive enemy, and in many ways, more dangerous than a gale. A ship can fight the wind, can ride out the waves, but in a thick fog, a ship is blind. The captain loses all sense of direction, all visual cues. The rocks and shoals that line this coast, the very dangers your light is meant to expose, become invisible traps. In a fog, your light is useless. A new weapon is required. Your quiet afternoon is officially over. The sight of the approaching fog bank triggers a new set of protocols, a new sense of urgency. You quickly take your vegetables inside, placing them on the table, and immediately turn your attention to the preparations for what is to come. There is no time to waste. The fog can move with surprising speed, swallowing your entire island in a matter of minutes. You climb the stairs, not with the slow, methodical pace of your morning chores, but with a quick, purposeful stride. You pass your living quarters, past the landing with the window, and continue up towards the lantern room, but you don't go all the way to the top. Instead, you stop at a level just below the lantern, a machinery space that houses a different kind of apparatus. Here, depending on the area and the specific equipment of your station, you will find the fog signal mechanism. In earlier times, it might have been a colossal bronze bell, weighing 1,000 pounds or more, mounted on the exterior of the tower. Later, it could be a steam-powered whistle, a compressed-air horn, or a diaphone, a powerful device that produced a distinctive to B-wave sound. Today, your station is equipped with a large, mechanically operated fog bell. You inspect the mechanism that operates it. It's a complex system of clockwork, similar in principle to the one that turns the lens. but built for brute force rather than delicate precision. It consists of a large drum, around which a heavy cable is wound. At the end of the cable is a massive weight. When released, the weight descends down a shaft running through the center of the tower, and it's slow. Control 4 provides the power to swing a heavy hammer that strikes the bell at precise, regulated intervals. Your first job is to wind it. You insert a large iron crank into a socket in the drum and begin to turn. It is back minus braking work. You are essentially hoisting a weight of several hundred pounds up the full height of the tower. You put your entire body into it, your muscles straining, your breath coming in short, sharp gasps. The clockwork groans and clicks as you slowly, painstakingly wind the cable onto the drum. It can take 15 or 20 minutes of continuous, exhausting effort to fully wind the mechanism. This is a task that starkly illustrates why lighthouse keeping was considered man's work by many, and why female keepers had to possess a physical toughness that defied all stereotypes. The question of when to activate the fog signal was a matter of judgment, intense debate among keepers. The official rule was to turn it on when the fog is so thick that landmarks can no longer be seen at a certain distance. But this was subjective, started too early, and you waste precious energy if it's a coal miner's fired steam whistle and subject yourself to the deafening noise unnecessarily. Started too late, and a ship could already be in peril. Historians find frantic notes and logbooks about this dilemma, with keepers second miners guessing their own decisions, tormented by the responsibility. With the mechanism wound and ready, you check the hammer and the bell itself, ensuring there are no obstructions. Everything is prepared. No, you wait and do what? You return to your favorite window on the landing and observe the fog's silent advance. It doesn't roll in. It expands. It sinks. The horizon line disappears completely. The distant mainland, which was a faint smudge just an hour ago, is gone, erased from existence. The fog consumes the sea, its great tendrils swirling over the water's surface. Soon, it reaches the base of your rock, and the sound of the surf becomes even more deadened. The world outside your window is losing its detail, its color, its dimension. It is being replaced by a blank, white nothingness. The gulls have fallen silent. The world holds its breath. You know that soon you will not be able to see the water at all, not even the rocks at the base of your own tower. That is the moment to throw the lever, to engage the gears, and to begin the definite, monotonous, vital work of the fog signal. The light is for the clear nights, the noise is for the blind ones. The moment arrives. You look out the window, and the world is gone. There is no sea, no sky, only a swirling, opaque grey void. You can no longer distinguish the water from the air. This is it, the point of no return. The fog has completely enveloped your island. Any ship out there is now sailing blind, relying on compass, charts, and dead reckoning. They are sailing on a prayer. Your job is to give that prayer an answer. You move to the fog bell mechanism, your heart beating a little faster. This is a critical moment. You take a deep breath and pull the heavy iron lever that engages the clockwork. The effect is immediate. A loud clank echoes in the chamber as the gears mesh, followed by a low, powerful grinding sound. The great weight begins its slow, controlled descent down the shaft in the tower's core. You can feel a deep, rhythmic vibration through the soles of your feet. The machine is alive. You brace yourself. A few seconds later, it comes. An earth miner shaking, bone miners jarring clang. The massive hammer strikes the outer surface of the bronze bell. The sound is immense, a physical force that seems to punch through the stone walls of the tower and right into your chest. It's not just a sound you hear with your ears. It's a concussion you feel in your bones. The deep, resonant tone hangs in the air for a long moment before being swallowed by the thick, damp fog. Then, silence. A profound, ringing silence for a prescribed interval, perhaps 20 seconds, perhaps 30. Your station has its own unique characteristic, a specific pattern of strikes and silences that allows mariners to identify your light station by sound alone, just as they identify it by the flash pattern of your light at night. Your pattern might be a single strike every 30 seconds, The station down the coast might be a double strike every minute. And then, C-L-A, then G. It comes again, right on schedule, and again, and again. This will be the soundtrack to your life for as long as the fog remains. It could be hours, it could be days. There are stories of keepers on the New England and Canadian coasts who had to keep the fog signal running for a week or more during a persistent fog -O-war. Living inside a giant, resonating bell is a unique form of torture. The noise is inescapable. It permeates every corner of the tower. It makes the floorboards vibrate and the teacup on your table rattle. Conversation, if there were anyone to talk to, would be impossible. Sleep is a distant dream. The relentless, percussive assault on your senses is physically and mentally exhausting. A strange and little known health concern for keepers was hearing loss. In the 19th century, there was little to no understanding of long term noise induced hearing damage. Keepers were not issued with ear protection. They simply endured it. Many old keepers were partially or almost completely deaf, a direct result of their years of service standing next to steam whistles, explosive fog cannons, and massive bells. It was considered a simple, unglamorous hazard of the job. The debate over who is to blame for this is complex. Was it the negligence of the Lighthouse board, or was it simply a product of an era that lacked the scientific knowledge to understand the danger? Most academics agree it was the latter, a tragic consequence of pioneering a dangerous profession. Your work is not done once the bell is ringing. The clockwork mechanism is not perpetual. The great weight, having powered the hammer, will eventually reach the bottom of its shaft. The mechanism will run down. Before that happens, you must rewind it. So, every few hours, you will have to go through the back-braking process of cranking the weight all the way back up to the top. It's a Sisyphean task, a grueling physical effort just to ensure the relentless noise can continue. You try to go about your other tasks, your movements punctuated by the rhythmic clang. You go downstairs to your quarters. The noise is slightly less intense here, but it's still an oppressive presence. You try to read a book, but the sound shatters your concentration. You try to mend a piece of clothing, but your hands feel unsteady, jarred by the vibrations. Your simple meal of the grains you harvested earlier. The taste of fresh food is small, welcome anchor in this disorienting sensory chaos. As you eat, you stare out the window into the blank, white wall of the shore. You find yourself listening intently in the silence between the bell strikes. You are listening for the sound of a ship's horn, a faint, mournful cry in the distance, a sign that someone is out there, listening for you. Hearing that faint reply is a moment of profound connection, a confirmation that your noisy, exhausting work is making a difference. It means a ship knows where it is, and more importantly, where you are. The afternoon wears on, measured not by the sun, which is invisible, but by the number of times you've had to rewind the mechanism. The world is reduced to this elemental cycle: the winding, the waiting, and the clang. It is a state of suspended animation, a world without sight, only sound, and you are the source of that sound, the one constant in a blind and dangerous world. You pray the fog will lift before nightfall, but you are prepared for it not to. If it doesn't, you will have two duties to perform at once: keeping the bell ringing while also preparing to light a lamp that no one may even see. As the world outside remains a featureless grey void, an internal clock, honed by years of routine, tells you that evening is approaching. The fog shows no sign of lifting. This creates a dual responsibility, a layering of duties that is one of the most stressful situations a keeper can face. The fog bell must continue its deafening, rhythmic clang, a task that demands constant physical exertion and rewinding. But simultaneously, you must prepare for the night's primary duty: lighting the lamp. You begin the familiar ascent of the 100 steps, this time with the heavy 5-gallon can of oil in your hand. The climb is always a challenge, but today it feels monumental. Your muscles are already weary from winding the fog bell mechanism, and the relentless, percussive sound of the bell makes the climb feel disorienting. Each clang seems to jolt your entire body, threatening your balance on the narrow, winding stairs. You pause on the landings to catch your breath, the heavy can pulling at your arm, the sound echoing in the stone above the tower. Finally, you reach the lantern room. It's a strange, surreal environment. The curtains are still drawn from the morning's cleaning, so the room is dark and shadowy, but the fog outside is so thick that it presses in on the glass, turning the already dim space into a place of deep, silent gloom. A stark contrast to the violent noise of the bell one level below. The sound is still powerful up here, a deep, resonant hum that vibrates through the iron floor. You set the heavy oil can down with a thankful thud. The evening ritual begins, but tonight it feels different, more urgent. First, you fill the lamp's reservoir. You carefully uncap the oil can in the lamp's fuel tank, and using a large funnel to prevent spills, you pour the clear kerosene or thick whale oil. The G-lugging sound of the oil is almost completely lost beneath the tolling of the bell. You watch the level carefully, filling it to the prescribed mark. This is the fuel for the next 12 hours of darkness. Next, the wicks. This is a task of surprising delicacy. You carefully crank the wick assembly up, exposing the charred, circular edge from the previous night's burning. Using a special pair of wick-minus trimmers, which look like a cross between scissors and tweezers, you meticulously trim away the blackened crust. The goal is to create a perfectly level, clean surface. Any imperfection, a tiny J or a low spot, will cause the flame to burn unevenly, producing smoke that will cloud the lens and reduce the light's intensity. You run your finger lightly over the trimmed wick, ensuring it is perfectly smooth. Then you check everything one last time. The fuel lines are clear. The ventilator is unobstructed. The clockwork for the lens rotation is ready to be engaged. Everything is in a state of perfect preparedness. All this work is done in a state of strange contradiction. You are preparing a beacon of light, a visual signal of immense power, while knowing it may be completely invisible to anyone beyond a few feet from the tower. The thick fog will smother the light, turning its powerful, piercing beam into a diffuse, hazy glow, a phenomenon known as lume. Sailors might see this faint, ethereal glow in the sky above the fog, but they will not see the source. They will not get their bearing from it. Tonight, their safety depends on the bell, not the beam. So where light it at all? This is a question that has been debated, but the answer lies in the unwavering code of the keeper. The light must be lit. Regulations are absolute. From sunset to sunrise, the light must burn. No exceptions. A keeper would never dare to assume the fog would last all night. It could clear in an instant, and if a ship were to pass during that clear spell and find the light extinguished, the consequences would be dire, both for the sailors and for your career. The rule is the rule. The light is a promise, and you must keep it, whether anyone can see it or not. Historians sometimes refer to this as the ritualistic aspect of lighthouse keep. The adherence to schedule and procedure was so deeply ingrained that it became an almost sacred rite, performed regardless of the practical outcome. With all preparations complete, you wait. You stand in the gloomy, vibrating lantern room, a solitary figure amidst the gleaming brass and crystal. You can't see the sun to know when it has set. You must rely on your almanac, your charts, and your own internal sense of time. You watch the clock on the wall. It's ticking inaudible beneath the clang of the bell. The moment arrives, the calculated time of sunset. It is time to bring light into the darkness. Even if that darkness is a wall of white, the ritual must be completed. It's a profound act of faith, of duty, of pure, stubborn persistence against the elements. You are ready to ignite the flame. The moment of ignition is the climax of your day, the pivot upon which your entire routine turns. Even on a night like this, with the fog bell hammering at your senses, the act of bringing fire to the lamp feels significant, almost sacred. You take a long spill a thin, tightly rolled piece of paper or a sliver of wooden lighted from a small oil lamp you've brought with you, your personal pilot light. You slide open the small access door at the base of the lamp assembly. The smell of fresh oil and trimmed wick fills the air. With a steady hand, You reach inside with the lid's pill and touch the flame to the circular wick. It doesn't burst into flame immediately. Instead, a tiny line of blue fire races around the circle, almost invisibly. Then, slowly, the flame builds, growing from blue to yellow, gaining in strength and confidence. For the first few minutes, you keep the wick turned low, allowing the glass chimney and the metal parts of the lamp to warm up gradually, bringing it to full power to quickly crack the cold glass. You watch the young flame carefully, like a nurse tending to a newborn. You adjust the draft, ensuring it is getting the right amount of air. The flame steadies, its color brightening to a brilliant, pure white. It burns without a flicker, without a wisp of smoke. It is a perfect flame. Satisfied, you slowly begin to crank the wick higher, increasing the flow of fuel. The flame intensifies, growing from a simple light to a source of powerful radiant energy. The heat it generates is immense, and the lantern room, which was damp and cool just moments ago, begins to warm up rapidly. The light pushes back against the oppressive gloom, filling the small space with a dazzling, almost painful brilliance. Now for the final steps. First, you reach for the lever that engages the lens rotation clockwork. With a pull, you set the great machine in motion. The massive Fresnel lens, your crystal behemoth, begins its slow, silent, inexorable turn. The light is no longer static. It is now a moving, living thing. Then, you go to the heavy canvas curtains. Grabbing the rope pulls, you draw them back, one by one, revealing the fog-minus shrouded world outside. As the first section of the lens is uncovered, a colossal beam of light slices into the fog. It doesn't travel far. Instead of a sharp, defined ray, it creates a massive, swirling tunnel of illuminated vapor. It's like a solid thing, a pillar of pure light plunging into a sea of milk. As the lens turns, this pillar of light begins to sweep, a ghostly arm rotating in the mirror. The sight is otherworldly, an eerie spectacle of immense power meeting immense obstruction. A strange and beautiful phenomenon, often noted in keepers' logs, was the fog-minus bow or white rainbow. On some nights, the light refracting through the tiny water droplets of the fog would create a perfect, colorless rainbow in the mist just outside the lantern glass. It was a private spectacle, a ghost of a rainbow visible only to the keeper, a small, secret moment of beauty in the midst of the chaos. You are now at the center of a complex, functioning machine. Below you, the fog bell is striking its relentless, deafening rhythm. Above you, the lamp is burning with fierce intensity. Around you, the lens is turning, sweeping its majestic, useless beam into the white abyss. The entire tower is a symphony of noise and light, a frantic, desperate attempt to impose order on a chaotic world. The sense of responsibility is crushing. You are managing the systems at once. Your mind is constantly tracking the state of the lamp. Is the flame steady? Is the lens turning smoothly? While also being aware of the fog bell, how long until the wait needs to be rewound. It's a state of heightened, exhausting vigilance. This dual operation was the ultimate test of a keeper's skill and endurance, and the source of many academic discussions. How did they cope? Did they develop mental checklists, a form of cognitive multitasking, to keep track of everything? Or did the sheer sensory overload lead to a state of near-minus trance, where they operated on pure instinct and muscle memory? The sparse entries in the logbooks from nights like these, often just a few terse lines like thick fog all night, bell ringing, light burning bright, give us few clues into the keeper's internal state. They hint at a person too exhausted and overwhelmed to write anything more. You stand for a moment in the brilliant, rotating light, feeling the tower vibrate around you. You are the sole operator of this island of defiant technology. You are a warrior fighting a battle against the elements with weapons of light and sound. The fight will last all night. You are tired. You are on edge, but you're ready. You take one last look at the perfect flame, the turning lens, and the swirling fog outside. Everything is as it should be. Now, you must descend to your quarters below, to eat a lonely meal in the heart of your noisy, luminous machine. Descending from the brilliant, chaotic energy of the lantern room is like entering another world, As you make your way down the spiral staircase, the dazzling light recedes, replaced by the deep shadows of the tower's core. The primary sound is no longer the hum of the lens or the hiss of the lamp, but the deep, resonant CLANG of the fog bell, which seems to grow in intensity as you get closer to the mechanism. The vibration is a constant, physical presence. You reach your small living quarters. The room is dark, save for the single, small oil lamp you left burning on the table. Its gentle, yellow flame a stark contrast to the fierce, white blaze in the lantern above. The real light show, however, is happening outside your window. As the great beam from the lantern sweeps past, it illuminates the thick fog, and for a second, your entire room is flooded with a brilliant, diffused light. Then, as the beam passes, the room plunges back into near-minus darkness. Light, then dark. Light, then dark. It's a slow, rhythmic pulse that will be the backdrop to your entire evening. You are hungry. The physical exertion of winding the bell and the nervous energy of the past few hours have taken their toll. You move to the stove, its embers still glowing faintly from the afternoon. You add a few pieces of wood, coaxing it back to life. In a small pot, you heat up the simple meal you prepared earlier, perhaps as made from salted meat and the precious few potatoes you harvested from your rock garden. The smell of the hot food is a small, creature-like comfort in the midst of the mechanical chaos. You sit at your table to eat, a solitary figure in a pulsating room. The experience is surreal. You lift a spoonful of stew to your mouth, and the room flashes with brilliant white light. You chew, and the room is dark again. A few seconds of silence. Then the tower shudders with the CLANG of the bell. Eating becomes a disconnected, almost comical act, punctuated by flashes of light and concussive bursts of sound. This is the strange, domestic reality of lighthouse life that is so often overlooked. In the midst of immense responsibility and raging elements, there were still meals to be eaten, dishes to be washed. How did keepers maintain a sense of normalcy, of home, in such an extreme environment? Historians often look at the personal effects found at abandoned light stations for clues. A neatly embroidered sampler on the wall, a small, chipped porcelain doll, a well-worn rocking chair. These small domestic objects speak volumes about the attempt to create a pocket of humanity and comfort inside a stone machine. As you eat, your senses remain on high alert. You are listening to the rhythm of the tower. Is the interval between the bell strikes correct? Does the sweeping light outside seem to hesitate or stutter? Your meal is not a moment of rest, but a brief refueling stop in the middle of a long shift. You are always on duty. The psychological effects of this sensory environment are profound. The flashing light, known as the strobe effect, can be deeply disorienting, disrupting sleep patterns and causing headaches. The constant, loud noise of a fog signal is known to increase stress and anxiety. The combination of the two, for hours or even days on end, created a state of extreme sensory stress. The academic community continues to explore the long-term mental health impacts on keepers, with some researchers theorizing that the rhythmic, predictable nature of the stimuli might have had a strangely hypnotic or even meditative effect for some, while for others it was a form of torture. There was likely no single response. It depended on the individual's own resilience and psychological makeup. After your meal, you clean your plate and spoon, your movements economical and practiced. You have a few hours before the bell mechanism will need to be rewound again. You might try to read, but the flashing light makes the words on the page dance, and the bell shatters your concentration. So you simply sit. You sit in your chair, in your small room, and you watch the light sweep past, and you listen to the bell. You are the ghost in the machine. You are the living heart of this automated system. You are utterly alone, yet your actions are connected to the unseen, unknown sailors who are, you hope, navigating by the sound of your bell. It is a lonely, exhausting, and strangely intimate connection. You close your eyes for a moment, not to sleep, but just to rest them from the flashing light. You feel the rhythm of the tower in your bones, the sweep, the flash, the silence, the clang. It is the rhythm of your life. and the night is still young. The night deepens, but in your world, time is measured differently. It's not marked by the moon or stars, which are hidden behind the impenetrable curtain of fog. Instead, time is measured in cycles of duty. The sweeping beam of light outside your window marks the second. The rhythmic clang of the bell marks the minutes, and the winding of the clockwork marks the hours. Just as you feel a heavy drowsiness begin to settle in your bones, you know it's time. The fog bell mechanism is running down. The great weight that powers it has nearly reached the bottom of its long descent. You must rewind it, or the vital sound will cease. Pushing yourself up from your chair is an act of pure will. Your body aches with fatigue. You grab your small lantern and begin the familiar climb up the stairs to the machinery level. The tower is a different beast at night. The shadows thrown by your small lamp are deep and menacing, and the sound of the bell is even more monstrous in the confined space. You reach the winding drum and insert the heavy iron crank. The process is even more grueling than it was in the daylight. Your muscles scream in protest. You lean your entire body weight into the crank, turning it one agonizing click at a time. The rhythmic clang of the bell continues as you work, a constant, mocking reminder of the task that will never be truly finished until the fog lifts. You are in a physical battle with gravity, entropy, and exhaustion. With the mechanism finally ruined, you descend the stairs again. The brief reprieve you've earned feeling like a monumental victory, but you cannot truly rest. The night watch has begun. While the light and the bell are largely automated, they are not infallible. A keeper's vigilance is the final, crucial component of the system. You won't sleep in your bed, not on a night like this. Instead, you might doze in your chair, your head resting on the table, for a few minutes at a time. It's not true sleep, but a state of light, fit for dozing. Your senses still attuned to the rhythms of the tower. You've trained yourself to wake instantly at any change in the pattern. A stutter in the rotating light, a slight change in the tone of the bell. The smell of smoking oil, any of these would have you on your feet in a second, climbing the stairs to diagnose and fix the problem. This is the essence of the keeper's watch, long periods of monotonous vigilance punctuated by moments of high-stakes problem-solving. A wick could develop a scab of carbon and begin to smoke, threatening to cover the lens insole. A gear in the rotation clockwork could stick. The bell's hammer could get jammed. You are the sole troubleshooter, the only one who can put things right. A particularly fascinating, undebated aspect of the night watch is the unwritten log. The official logbook, with its neat entries, tells one story. But what about the small problems? The near-minus disasters that a clever keeper managed to fix before they became official incidents? Did a keeper who clumsily dropped and broke a lamp chimney always record it? Or did they sometimes quietly replace it from their stock of spares, avoiding the official reprimand? Historians who study these records often read between the lines, speculating that the keepers with the cleanest logs were not necessarily the best, or perhaps just the most adept at hiding their minor mistakes. The pressure to present a perfect record was immense. As you sit in your chair, drifting in and out of a light doze, your mind might play tricks on you. The isolation and sensory overload can create strange auditory and visual hallucinations. The monotonous clang of the bell can start to sound like a voice. The swirling fog illuminated by the beam can seem to form shapes and figures. Keepers' logs and memoirs are filled with tales of phantom ships, of hearing voices on the wind, of an unshakable feeling of being watched. Was it the supernatural, as some of them believe, or was it the predictable result of a sleep-deprived mind under extreme stress? Modern psychology would strongly suggest the latter. That, for you, in the dead of night, alone in your tower, the distinction is terrifyingly blurry. Sometime in the deepest part of the night, you make a mandatory trip back up to the lantern room. You must check on the flame. You climb the 100 steps in the dark, the beam of your hand-lantern guiding your way. You emerge into the dazzling, rotating heart of the light. The heat is intense. The air is thick with the smell of warm oil. You check the flame. It is burning steadily. You check the oil reservoir. It is still more than half full. You check the clockwork. It is turning smoothly. Everything is in order. You pause for a moment on the gallery outside, enclosed in the cage of light and fog. The wind is cold and damp on your face. You are suspended in a noisy, luminous bubble in the middle of an infinite void. It is a moment of profound, terrifying, and beautiful isolation. You are the only person awake for miles, the keeper of a mechanical star. You make your way back down to your chair, to your fitful, vigilant rest. The night stretches on, a seemingly endless cycle of noise, light, and waiting. You are waiting for the dawn. You are waiting for the fog to break. You are waiting for your watch to be over. The change, when it comes, is almost imperceptible. It's not a grand announcement, but a subtle shift in the quality of the darkness. The impenetrable black that exists between the sweeps of the light begins to soften, thinning into a deep, bruised purple. The fog, which has been a solid wall of white all night, starts to show hints of translucent. You've made it. Dawn is approaching. This is a moment of profound relief, a physical release of tension you didn't even realize you were holding. Your body, aching from exhaustion and the constant vibration, feels a surge of renewed purpose. The end of the long watch is in sight. You stand up from your chair, stretching your stiff limbs, and begin the final phase of your nightly duties. You climb the stairs to the lantern room one last time in the darkness. The air inside is still thick with heat from the lamp, but the character of the room is changing. The faint, grey light of the approaching dawn begins to filter through the fog, competing with the artificial brilliance of your lamp. The battle between your light and the coming day has begun. You stand on the gallery, watching the world slowly reappear. The fog is not lifting, but dissipating, like a ghost fading with the morning sun. First, you can see the churning water directly below the tower. Then, the outlines of the seaweed miners covered rocks at your island's base. The sound of the surf, which has been a muffled thump all night, begins to regain its crisp, roaring edge. The world is returning. The fog bell continues its monotonous clang, a duty it must perform until visibility is fully restored. But its purpose feels less desperate now. With the first light, captains can see at least a little further. The immediate, blinding danger is passing. As the sun crests the true horizon, somewhere behind the remaining blanket of fog, the sky brightens significantly. The moment has come, the same moment that started your long day yesterday, the extinguishing of the light. You perform the ritual in reverse. You pull the heavy canvas curtains shut, plunging the lantern room into protective gloom. You disengage the lens rotation mechanism, and the great light minus, sweeping machine size to a halt. Finally, with the brass snuffer, you extinguish the flame. The brilliant white light vanishes. The intense heat begins to fade, and the tower's primary purpose is put to sleep for the day. The silence in the lantern room is blissful. The absence of the lamp's hiss and the clockwork's hum is a balm to your frayed nerve. Now, for the other noise, you descend to the machinery level and, with a final, satisfying pull of a lever, you disengage the fog bell clockwork. The final clang echoes, and then, silence, a true, deep, all-minus encompassing silence you haven't experienced in what feels like a lifetime. It rings in your ears, a hollow space where the noise used to be. It is the most beautiful sound in the world. You are now in the aftermath. The tower is quiet. Your duties are, for the moment, complete. You are operating on pure, weary adrenaline. You make your way down to your quarters, the morning light now streaming more confidently through your window. The fog has broken into scattered, drifting patches, and you can see a clear, blue-grey sky above them. This moment, after a long, difficult night, is one that few people will ever experience. It's a unique blend of utter exhaustion and profound satisfaction. You have done your job. You have kept the light burning and the bell ringing. You have fought the storm, the fog, the darkness, and you have won. You have kept your silent promise to the unseen sailors. This cycle of intense crisis followed by quiet routine is the fundamental rhythm of your life. It's a rhythm that has been a subject of study, with some sociologists and historians arguing that this structure is what prevented more keepers from succumbing to mental breakdown. The rigid demands of the routine provided an anchor, a predictable structure in a life surrounded by chaos and uncertainty. The cycle always returned to the familiar, the cleaning, the polishing, the log mine escaping. No matter how wild the night, the morning always brought the same quiet chores. You look at your reflection in the small, wavy mirror on your wall. Your face is pale, smudged with soot, and there are dark circles under your eyes. But your eyes are clear. You are tired, but you are not defeated. A new day has begun, and with it, the entire cycle starts over. Soon, you will have a simple breakfast. Then you will begin the long, patient work of cleaning the soot from the lamp chimney, polishing the brass, and preparing the entire apparatus for the coming night. You are the beginning and the end of the circle. You are the keeper, and as a new day dawns upon your small, rocky kingdom, you are ready to do it all again. And now, the story is over. The keeper's long night has ended, and yours can truly begin. Feel the exhaustion in her bones as your own, a deep and satisfying weariness. The relentless clang of the bell has faded, leaving only a gentle, ringing silence in your mind. The flashing light has ceased, allowing the darkness behind your eyes to be deep and calm and welcoming. You can let go of the vigilance now. Her watch is over, and so is yours. Imagine the tower, now quiet in the morning light. The great lens is shrouded and sleeping. The brass is waiting patiently to be polished. The logbook is closed. All is still. All is peaceful. Let that sense of profound, earned quiet settle over you like the softest blanket. There are no more duties to perform, no alarms to heed. There is only the gentle, rhythmic sound of the sea, a constant, soothing breath, washing against the rocks far below. It's the sound of the world turning, a lullaby as old as time itself. Allow yourself to drift on that sound. Let it carry you away from the shore of Fresnel, out into the deep, calm waters of sleep. You are safe. You are secure. The light is out for the day, and you can rest. Just rest now. Let the gentle current of your own breathing pull you deeper and deeper into the quiet harbor of your dreams. There is nothing else you need to do. The end of the article. Good night.